Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first ever episode of the Biff. My name is Bradley. For those of you that follow us on Twitter, I'm sorry. We're recording this on Thursday night. I made a massive error. I muted myself, and nobody could hear me. So we're re-recording. We've all forgot what we said, so it will sound completely natural. I'm also joined by my co-host Robin to that side, Toby below me, and together we'll bring you a slightly different view at the world of rugby league, give you all the ins and outs of the week's events, and plenty of other wonderful little nippy and little bits that we want to add in. This week, though, we're going to bring you a preview of the Challenge Cup first round ties that are taking place this weekend. So they start on Friday night into Saturday, and then some on Sunday for you as well. So you've got a nice weekend of proper competitive rugby league for the first time since, I think, the end of October, which will be really nice. But before we go into anything, lads, how was your New Year? How was your Christmas? And did you get yourself to any Boxing Day friendlies?
Yeah, I had a good Christmas, thanks. Good New Year's as well, yeah. Nice, relaxing break from everything. But I think I put a message in the chat, actually. I think it was only like beginning of December, and I was like, I'm getting bored.
I think you did. You were like, when's rugby league back?
Yeah. So, yeah, I actually did manage to get down to Leeds on Boxing Day, watched them play against Wakefield. And then I was at York last Friday, watched them play Midlands in another pre-season friendly. So I've managed to get 2 in already.
Nice, good. I'm glad you've got there. I think I'm planning on going down to a game this weekend in Chiswick to watch the London Chargers play. What about yourself, Toby? Been to any? I know you've been to some sporting events, but you've been to any proper sporting events like rugby league?
No, I was just gonna say it's been far too long for me. The last thing I watched rugby league was the grand final, and I've been waiting ever since for the return. And now it's all of a sudden. I was like, oh, it's New Year. Season doesn't start till like end of February, and then little I know I've forgotten the Challenge Cup exists, and we rushed back into talking about rugby league this week. So good to be here, though.
Yeah, it's really is good to be back. Quickly on the New Year's game, the Boxing Day game and on the York game, Robin. How did you feel, particularly Leeds and Wakey, in that fixture? Yeah. How do you think the team was matched up against each other? We'll start with Leeds.
Yeah, I mean, it was quite a one-sided game. Leeds were completely dominant. I think the only Wakefield try came from a really lucky fifth tackle kick, and the winger couldn't collect the ball, and then the chasing Wakefield attacker pounced on a drop ball, and that was scored in the first sort of 10 minutes. And from there was just no chance they were breaking through Leeds. Defensively, they were pretty strong. Like I say, Wakefield wasn't throwing much at them, but this Leeds was still, in defence, looked to be a good solid unit. If Wakefield were taking it side to side and it didn't bother them, they just sort of pushed them over the touchline or chased them down. So that's good to see, because that's important when you've got so many new players coming in to get right. And then in attack, they were pretty exciting as well. They Myler, Caesar, and Austin linked up really well, which is good to see, because that's their first full game together as the three of them in the spine. I think it's going to go well for Leeds, actually, seeing how Caesar and Austin combined with Austin's running game and off the cuff sort of style, and Caesar's organisational skills. They played really well. Honourable mention for Wakefield's probably for Fita, who was really the only Wakefield player I noticed that was actually having a good game, or as good a game as you can have in those circumstances, and he was trying to lift his side. So that's the tiny positive Wakefield fans can take from it. But yeah, very very like one-sided afternoon. But it was a good game. It was good to get out on Boxing Day. The capacity was 10,000. I think the capacity was 9,999, because 10,000 wasn't allowed. There's too many people, and I think there was 9,700 and something. So it was pretty much full.
Pretty
and
packed.
It was good atmosphere as well. So yeah, it was good day.
Good, I'm glad. On Wakey, they put out quite not a full strength side, but there was a lot of first team players that played the game, didn't they? Or first team players, regular players that played a lot last year and the year before. To see them be dismantled like by a Leeds team that hasn't played together before, it's a bit worrying for Wakefield, isn't it, this season?
Yeah. I mean, Leeds were playing well, so I think it was quite a tough first hit out. But yeah, there wasn't much to take, many positives to take from that Wakefield performance. I don't know if maybe they were trying new things, maybe they're just not with it at the start of the season. It's always hard to read too much into these games, but yeah, it was tough to watch. I felt sorry for the fans because at Leeds there's that one stand that's not covered because it's not developed, and they just stick the away fans down there. And I saw some like Wakefield fans like wrapped up on a freezing cold Boxing Day afternoon, watching a team just getting smashed. I felt sorry for them.
Hungover, full of Christmas dinner, watching their team get battered. Yeah. It's not what you want on Boxing Day, is it at all? But you also went to see your side play, the team that you follow in York. They welcome Midlands Hurricanes to the new. Is it the Eleanor Arena or Liner Stadium? Yeah. We're gonna call it the Liner Stadium because it's a lot easier to say.
All right then, yeah.
It's a lot easier to.
It's not like we want a sponsorship from or
anything.
That was another good game. That was a Friday night. It was freezing. It was absolutely bitterly cold. But yeah, another quite a one-sided game really. I think it's more to be expected when you've got a League One side coming up against a Championship side rather than two Super League clubs. But yeah, it was positive from a York point of view. There was plenty of new faces out there, and a lot of the centres and wingers particularly played well. Oakes, Ogden, Butterworth. I thought they all had really good games, and we also handed out some debuts to some local lads actually. There's a couple of them who've played in amateur clubs in York, and they seem to get on like absolutely fine. You probably wouldn't have known it was their first game, and yeah, it was just good to get back out, and there was a decent crowd and everything. From a Midlands point of view, they looked like quite a small side. There wasn't many big players. There's one prop that was just normal sized, and he looks huge compared to his teammates. So. But I like the new kit. I don't know what you think about the rebrand, but I do kind of miss Cobb Bears. I quite liked it, but
yeah,
as far as rebrands go, it's quite a good one. I quite like it.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to play when I was playing as a junior. We played Cobb Bears juniors, and that the team and the foundation that they run is fantastic. The way they bring the junior kids through. They're having this Midlands thing now is they are Midlands Rugby League. Cobb Bears have been Midlands Rugby League for however long. You feel for the likes of like Nottingham and stuff like that have got teams in the Midlands that are not at that level, but the Cobb Bears are the team that you watch around here, and it's nice. Alan definitely knows what he's doing. He's done it the right way. I remember speaking to him a couple of years ago now when I wrote an article on the Bears and Bedford Tigers and sort of comparing the two. He said the toughest part was turning them in from a rugby club that played rugby league into a rugby league club that only had rugby league players. And he did that around 2011. And that was obviously just before they came into League One. And doing that is such a big step. And he's handled it so well. He's handled the lack of money that we all spoke about towards the end of last season really well. So fair play to Alan Robinson. And I do quite like the rebrand. The rebrand's really, really good. Toby, North Wales Crusaders have got a pre-season friendly against Barrow coming up. How do you think that's going to go okay, or do you think it could be a tough one with Barrow obviously now being a championship side?
Yeah, Barrow are sort of an arch enemy of the Crusaders, if you wanted to say it like that. Crusaders beat Barrow in their sort of winning run towards the end of last season, and then Barrow beat them in the playoffs, I believe. So I guess maybe there's hopefully. That's some motivation to start off your season positively, rebounding from that. But I think at the end of the day, it'll be use the full squad to, get minutes in the legs, and I think it's just sort of the very loyal supporters club at North Wales Crusaders will have a nice trip to Barrow. I think that's the way around they're playing.
Yeah, it's in Barrow, yeah.
So they'll have a lovely trip out to Barrow in the bitter cold, and yeah, it'll it's a weird one actually, sort of pre-season friendlies in those lower tiers of where you just sort of phone up a championship club and go, "Can we please come?" But
can we come and play you? Yeah.
Yeah.
But no, nice of Barrow to welcome you, and I look forward to seeing how you guys go because, like you said, you signed quite a few of the players that were involved in that winning run, but they also were involved in the collapse towards the end of the year as well. So it's going to see how they bounce back from the disappointment towards the end of the season. Before we get into our main topic of the Challenge Cup and everything else, we're gonna move on to something that we're gonna do every week. And that's going to be our story of the round. We haven't had any rounds yet. We can't pick something from the last week. So this is going to be Robin's thing. Robin's going to bring us a story of the round, for this week it's going to be the story of the winter. Robin, what was your story of the winter involving rugby league?
So the story of the pre-season. I think it was unanimous when we spoke about it earlier in the week. We all chose this one, and it's a story about. Two very successful teammates who've obviously got a lifelong bond, and they're showing the same resolution that gave them the unmatched success on the pitch in a heartbreaking fight against NMD, and that's Kevin Sinfield and Rob Burrow. So back in 2019, Rob Burrow was diagnosed with motor neuron disease, which is a condition which affects your brain and nerves, and it causes weakness over time and eventually leads to death. And it's something that can happen quite quickly or it can happen quite slowly, but it's something that's once it happens, you've got to just seize the moment and just start living instantly because you don't know how long you've got. And Kevin Sinfield, who captained Borough through I can't remember how long they played. It was over a decade. They won 7 titles together for Leeds, and he's sort of taken it upon himself to help his friend out and try and raise as much money and awareness as possible and support the family as well. So back in 2019, shortly after it was announced, it was in 2020. It was just after Christmas because it was late 2019 when he was diagnosed. They organised a friendly against Bradford Bulls. That was going to be James Jones Buchanan's testimonial, and they shared the funds from that to go to helping out Rob Burrow. And he did play in that game, and that was a great occasion to sort of landmark what was about to happen and bring awareness to it. And then since then, Kevin's been out and he's done these just ungodly marathons that are just crazy distances. So last year he did 7 marathons in 7 days. Obviously, an honour to Borough wearing a 7, and he raised 2 million on that occasion. And then in this pre-season, which is why we've included it, he ran 100 miles from Leicester, which is the club that he's currently coaching Leicester Tigers. And he ran from there to Headingley in Leeds, which is 100 miles, and he raised another 2.7 million. So the total's over 4.7 million that he's been able to raise. They're going to build an extra wing in the hospital, and that's going to help look after Rob Burrow and his family and help hopefully try and find a cure for NMD. So without a doubt, this is the perfect way to kick off the show, and the story of the pre-season is definitely the fantastic work that these two guys have done, and it just shows just the bond that they had, and I think that's why they were so successful. They clearly were willing to go to extreme lengths because they cared so much about each other.
Yeah, fantastically put. I think, like you said, it just goes to show that these two are such good friends. They weren't just people that played rugby together. They were friends, they were brothers, they were family. They do so much for each other, even now. Like Burrow tweeted that he respects and he is in awe of Kevin Sinfield. He doesn't know what he'd be able to do without him. And I think this leads us perfectly on to something else we'll do quite frequently. Is we're gonna open the Biff Rugby League Hall of Fame, where you get to enter people, you get to enter moments, you get to enter matches, you get to enter certain teams. We know which Toby's team is going to be in a couple of weeks' time. But I'll let Toby say a few words on who is going to be the inaugural member of the Biff Rugby League Hall of Fame.
Yeah, so I think it might be clear by now to the people watching and listening. But between the two of them, I think all three of us would agree that if we put together a Super League team of our lifetime, Sinfield and Borough are in there at 7 and 13. I think the way they played the game was outstanding, and like that is crazy to think that now they're remembered for something even more important to the world than their contribution to the sport of rugby league. And welcome to the Biff Rugby League Hall of Fame. In all likelihood, the most legitimate Hall of Famers, which will be in the Hall of Fame. We might have to get them like gold plated or something to be able to sort of signify that they are a genuine inductee. But yeah, welcome to the Biff Rugby League Hall of Fame, Kevin Sinfield and Rob Burrow.
Yeah, well done to them today. And it's not just Kevin Sinfield, is it now? It's Kevin Sinfield OBE. He received his, I believe he received his OBE yesterday from Prince William. So very, very timely indeed. A player that won a Super League title with these two is Anthony Milali. And this is the best segue ever. And thank you to, I believe it was Toby, or it was one of you two that thought about it. And it was absolutely fantastic. Anthony Milali is one of the 3 players that have signed for Cornwall Rugby League, and they're not entering the Challenge Cup. So we'll have a little chat about Cornwall. The first question is, what do you think about Cornwall not entering the Challenge Cup?
I think it just bodes so badly for their future. Personally, it not being able to enter the Challenge Cup, their season starts in like 2.5 months' time or something. And from that point, they've got to sign like 20 players with a shortened pre-season. You've got clubs sort of getting their pre-seasons out of the way, ready to start the Challenge Cup. These are pre-seasons not even started. I said when we sort of recorded the first time, it worries me sort of if they're even going to manage to find the players to play for them, being in the location they are. Although apparently their open trials have gone very well. But yeah, it's something where I'm very sort of worried that to set up a new club and then not struggle so much to sign players. It's just something that really worries me for the birth of what's in all reality is a club which could have a lot of money and bring a lot of new viewership and new wealth to the game of rugby league.
Yeah, Robin, what are your thoughts on this? Because I really want it to work. We're all fans of expansion. We loved the Toulouse promotion. We loved Catalans getting as far as they did. We love the teams outside of the M62 corridor because that's just the way we are. But this has a slightly different feel to it, don't you think?
Yeah, it's a difficult one. Like you say, we want it to succeed, and that's why we're being so critical, because we don't want to just accept a bad attempt at getting this right that's going to fail, because then we might lose the opportunity and we won't return there. So that's why we're being like super critical. I think this is tough because the Challenge Cup is such a unique competition, because it just unites all of the amateur clubs right up to the top level throughout the country. So to say that you're not going to be part of this competition in particular is difficult to take, because you'd think this is something that's so important to so many clubs. And like we said before, the fact that they're not in there means that clubs below them don't get a chance to play in the Challenge Cup. So it's almost selfish in a way that they've put themselves in this position. It's a tough one. Obviously, we want to see it do well. And we spoke before about how Cornwall was could be a really great opportunity to us. There's no team, no other big sports team in the area. It's previously an untapped market. So I was going to ask, what do you think? Do you think the RFL should make special exceptions for them to make sure that they can stay afloat? Do you think that they should give them priority over other clubs that are currently in the M62 corridor that we respect and love, but maybe want to see a Cornwall take over their place for the good of the game?
Yeah, they did this with Catalan, didn't they? When they brought Catalan into the game, they made sure they couldn't get relegated from Super League, and then they brought in the licensing, didn't they? I believe, or did they bring in the licensing and then they brought in Catalan? I think it was Catalan then licensing, and they said Catalan can't go down. Like, Catalan are a Super League team. They'll stay in Super League. But for the first, was it 4 seasons, no relegation for Catalan. But the team that finished above Catalan would be relegated. It was really confusing a bit. And people were like, you can't really get away with that. You can't do this. You can't do that. And I think, but it's worked. You look at Catalan now and you're like, flipping hell. And you look at Toulouse, and Toulouse are in there now. And you've got 2 quality French teams in the top division of it is the European Super League. It isn't just the British Super League. It's not the Northwest Super League. It's the European Rugby League Super League, and we have to make this work. We have to back Neil Kelly. We have to back Eric Perez. We have to back Cornwall Rugby League Football Club. The way the RFL go about it, they have to be so clear on what they're doing. We know they can't get relegated from League One, so it's nice the fact they've started in League One. But if they move up to the Championship, are they going to say to them, if they do go up in 3 or 4 years' time, are they going to say, okay, you now can't get relegated, the team that finishes above you is going to go down? Or how they need to come up with that plan now, and they need to tell people now. But if they do that, are they doing it too soon? It's difficult because of the way they're starting. It's totally different to how they did it with Catalan. But I think the clubs would have to agree. Every single club in the top 3 leagues would have to agree with how they deal with it. I don't think. Don't you agree, Toby? Do you agree or do you disagree?
There's 2 main points for me, really. One's like, if you decide to give effectively special backing to Cornwall, I sort of worry. Well, not worry, but I get annoyed in terms of Coventry Bears. We've spoke about earlier how fantastically run and how fantastic strides they made when Gloucester were collapsing, or Gloucestershire were collapsing, when Oxford were collapsing, when Hemel were collapsing. Coventry flew the flag, got stronger. Really showed what it's about to be in like a non-Heartlands League One club, and they've ended up having to rebrand to the Midlands. And yeah, so if we'd be able to turn around to Cornwall in a very quick amount of time and say, we're going to give you priority over something like the Midlands/Coventry project, and I think it would be something that I would be sort of quite annoyed by personally. The other perspective is sort of, it's a weird where Cornwall is sort of an untapped market. The nearest football league club is Plymouth. The nearest rugby club is probably also Plymouth, who are in like the 2nd tier of rugby union.
It'd probably be the Cornish Pirates, but even they play in a totally different town, which is a good trek away from Penryn. They don't play in the same place.
Even then, there's no 1st tier sports or high or professional sports in Cornwall, which gives me a little bit of hope that you can rally the whole of Cornwall around this team.
Yeah.
However, there's the place they'll be playing, this Penryn Memorial Ground, that's not set up to be able to have a big Cornwall-based support, etc. And there's a lot of things which I just sort of wonder what the actual goal is, because the way it looked, if we didn't know that Eric Perez was the guy backing them, and we didn't know the involvement Eric Perez has had in growing a club into Super League before, then this would look like an expansion franchise club that was going to be around for a few years before realising the struggles of being in League One and travel and things like this, and the fact that their shortest trip is by boat to West Wales.
Yeah, it's a difficult one, isn't it?
There's so many questions that I think I'm just waiting to be answered, and I hope that I come back here halfway through the season and say I'm now a Cornwall fan.
I don't think I'll ever be a Cornwall fan, but I certainly don't want them to turn out like another Toronto where they hit Super League. And yeah, Toronto, it was a bit different because there was the pandemic and they weren't able to get back over to Canada, and it was massive for them, and they spent money on players rather than money on things that would keep them afloat, and that's where they're wrong. But it's the same bloke in charge. Has he learnt from his mistakes of Toronto? He tried to go to Ottawa, couldn't do it because of the pandemic, and it would cost too much. He's gone to Cornwall, to an untapped market where these players won't want, the players that they want to buy or they want to sign will not want to earn as much as the likes of Furufu, Moi Moi playing in League One, and the likes of like Chase Stanley playing in League One. They won't want that sort of money. They'll have that, but it's whether they'll want to move. It's the trip. Players from the northwest and the northeast and like even the Midlands that are wanting to go, they ain't gonna want to travel. They're gonna probably have a squad of 25 guys. They're gonna have to live and work in Cornwall, and they've got three signings at the minute, two of which are community level players from the area, and they've got a long way to go. I just fingers crossed it works. Fingers crossed that we're not.
Logistically, they've got so much against them
Yeah,
that it's gonna be difficult if they were already an established club to deal with those things playing in the league that they're in. To then have the fact where you're struggling to get players in, you're then going to find it difficult to build a fan base because you're probably not going to be winning many games. So who's going to want to turn up and watch your team get beaten every week?
yeah,
I just hope it goes well, and I think that in a way we should give them a special consideration because whilst Perez got it wrong at Toronto, he was also sort of not really helped out by the RFL. And
yeah,
they sort of set these rules. They said, come in at League One, get promoted, then you're a Super League club. And they did everything that was asked of them. And as soon as they needed help, rather than stepping in, the RFL just let them die and replaced them with another M62 club. So I think that I think they're lucky that this guy's come back to say, I'm willing to try
yeah.
it
Try
again. I'm
again.
willing to spend more money. So I think that they should sort of, whilst he should learn from it, the RFL should learn from it and go, we probably won't be that lucky. And if we do it to this guy twice, we'll definitely lose him, but we're also likely to put off anybody else who's thinking about investing in our sport.
Yeah, it's a dangerous game, and the RFL have got to be really, really careful. It's like they're definitely treading on eggshells, and I'm sure they're aware of it. I'm sure they're massively aware of the dangers that's coming with this. But we do need to move on, and hopefully in a year's time, Cornwall will have signed a squad of 25. They'll have completed their fixtures. They'll have won a handful of games because I don't want to see them get beat every week like West Wales. Like we don't want to see that. We don't want to see two teams lose every week, and the only game they do win is against each other. Like that would be really disappointing. But like we said, hopefully in a year's time we'll come back to this and there'll be a mid-table team, or they'll just be below mid-table. But like you said, wasn't it 7 out of 11 teams can make the playoffs in League One? So there's not a lot of work really to do. But there's definitely some work to do in terms of how they perform on the pitch. But we have to move on. Challenge Cup first round this weekend. Community sides are back, boys. We have old-fashioned Rugby Cup ties. We have old-fashioned Rugby League Challenge Cup ties back again. Like, I'm excited. Are you guys excited? Are you excited to see community teams back in this cup?
Yeah, it's been a long time coming, hasn't it?
It feels a long time. It's been 2 years,
Yeah,
but it feels like a long time.
it does. And I think, like I was saying earlier, it's such a unique competition. I think it's a real like USP that we have this competition that unites the clubs from the bottom to the top of the game. It's great that we can get back out and celebrate it, and all these amateur clubs have got something to work towards again.
Yeah, it'll be really, really good. We'll talk instead of sort of discussing it. We'll just go straight up to it. Toby, what is your standout tie of the first round?
Standout tie. For me, it's weird because I mean it's just been the FA Cup in football, and like that's all about top tiers versus lower tiers. However, I think in the first round of the Challenge Cup, all you can ask for is lots of tries but a competitive game. And I think that's sort of the potential of Loch Lane versus Stato Heath Crusaders has. Both National Conference League Premier sides, so at the very top of amateur rugby league. Castleford versus St Helen. So if you're a Castleford fan or a St Helens fan, put this one in your diary. It's not quite the same, but it'll do. And yeah, I think that for me is the potential to see the hardest hitting, best try scoring, everything. I think this is the most professional of all the ties, which is again feels a bit wrong to say when we love the amateur level of this, but I think this is the highest level of rugby league that will be played by both teams this weekend. So that would be my pick.
Yeah, Robin. What about yourself? Are you going to go with someone obscure and nice, or are you going to go with your hometown boys away?
Technically I'm taking both because because York are playing in Edinburgh this weekend, and you could call York obviously my hometown team, but Edinburgh you could call them obscure because they are the only Scottish team in the competition this year. So any Scots out there, this is your only chance to get anywhere near the Challenge Cup trophy. So yeah, Edinburgh Eagles. They're actually a very established team. They've been in the competition. The first appearance actually in 1999. They've had 12 appearances in the competition. They beat Jarrow Vikings in 2019, and they're a pretty good side in their division, in their league up in Scotland. When York Acorn obviously are also a pretty successful team. They got to the third round of the Challenge Cup in 2020. They will go in as favourites, but we've also got to consider the drive is one thing. Also, a lot of the Edinburgh players will have been playing Union, so they'll be fit for the off season. Whereas York's probably they won't have played a game yet. I know they've not played a game yet, but they haven't really been training too much because they've only just got back into it. So they'll be a bit rusty. So there's a chance that we could have an upset on our hands.
Who would be the upset in this situation? Who would?
So yeah, the upset would be if Edinburgh beat York. Really,
Okay.
that would be the upset. But or it'd be upsetting for me anyway. Yeah. So hopefully York can do it, because I know that at Acorn it's one of their big targets for the year. This is something that they always want to achieve and sort of focus on. For them, this is a massive game. Even though it's the first game of the season, this is a massive game, and that's why I was saying earlier, I'm so glad that it's back on, because it just gives them those fixtures that, like, all the fans love them, like everyone in York gets behind them, and I know that the players are really proud of how they've performed over the last couple of years in the cup. So hopefully they can get the result, and then I think they've got a home fixture in the next round, and they'll get a good attendance. We're getting ahead of ourselves, but yeah, it should be a good game. So I've picked that one this week.
Yeah, my standout tie is going to be. It's going to be one of the southern-based teams. You two both know I love to make sure the South gets their representation every week. Something will get mentioned about Southern Conference Rugby League. This one is London Chargers versus Edinburgh Rangers. It's a long trip for the Rangers. I think we worked out it's the longest trip of any team in the first round. I think it's the longest away trip, and it's from Cumbria to Chiswick. That's a long way. I don't know if they'll be able to handle it. If they do, they've got to go down on Friday night. They've got to then get up. It's a 12:30 kickoff or 1:00 kickoff at Chiswick Rugby Club. It's going to be a long trek. And if they do manage to beat Chargers, they've got to do the journey again 2 weeks later when they head to New River, and they'll play the London Scholars. But if the Chargers win, we get a London derby. We get a massive fixture where a community side could beat a League One side, depending on the team that Scholars put out. Scholars team has been up and down for a long time. They've just had a coaching change. Their head coach has just gone to Broncos. They've got a new head coach in. It's going to be a very, very interesting tie. The Chargers have only reached the second round twice, but the way they played last year, getting to the semi-finals and losing to West Warriors, who I don't think lost a game all season. But it's going to be a long trek. It's going to be a tough game. It's on a 4G pitch. The Chargers will play smooth, lovely rugby, and I don't know if Edinburgh Rangers will be able to bring the wet weather, like grimy, like Cumbrian rugby league style, and be able to just transfer that onto a nice, lush 4G like dry pitch. Like, because even if the weather's bad, the pitch won't be dirty underfoot, so the Chargers will still be all right. I think that's one of the standout ties of the weekend as well. But there's plenty of honourable mentions. We've got 4 representative sides in the competition this year. We've got the Navy, we've got the Army, we've got the Police, and we've got the RAF. Toby, I'm going to let you move on to the Police tie first, because I know that you're really interested in one of their potential second round opponents.
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, obviously, it's great to have those representative sides. I think it's something a little bit special about the sport, is getting those rep sides together, and also giving those rep sides the chance to actually win something really important. But even just sort of have those early round games. But yeah, Great Britain Police, they play away to Siddle, which, I mean, Siddle are a very high quality amateur side, so it'd be a very difficult game for the Police. But if they did win that, and if the Galway Tribesmen, the Ireland representative team, who are playing away at Pilkington, but they're technically at home to Pilkington, if they manage to both win their ties as underdogs, that we will get to see the Great British Police and Ireland face each other in the second round of the Challenge Cup, which is just something that I think has to be put on our league, has to be put on BBC Sport.
Yeah,
has to just be put out there for us to watch.
It's international, isn't it? It's the best team in Ireland versus a Great Britain team. It's an international fixture. I think you have to. I think if they're both these teams pull off the shocks that they've got, then it's definitely a tie that will be televised. Speaking of televised ties, not just the 2 televised ties now. There's 3 televised ties this weekend. The Sportsmen have got a deal with the Challenge Cup now. I think they'll be doing 20 live rugby league games this year, starting this weekend. I can't recall the game that will be played. I'm literally just about to search it up now as we go. But the Sportsmen,
fantastic. That deal's because that deal's come in very recently, hasn't it? So
it has.
I think that it's mint. I think we were talking earlier in the week about how many hundreds of games there are this year, and we just whacked another 20 on top for free, like free to air games. So it's exciting times. I hope that it continues actually, because I've watched a few of their coverages now, and they do a pretty good job to say that it's a free stream that you don't pay for.
Yeah, no, it's really, really good. It's going to be Wigan St Pat's, who are coached by Challenge Cup legend Andy Gregory, and they'll take on Rochdale Mayfield, who I believe reached the 4th round back in 2020. So really, really interesting one. A tie that I'm looking forward to, not quite my standout tie, but it was very, very, very close. It's going to be the Royal Navy travelling to Bridgend, and I think that's being played tomorrow night. Friday night game in Wales for the Navy. It's not too bad of a journey from Portsmouth, providing all the lads have been together for a week now for the Navy, but we just don't know what Navy side they're going to get. I've seen the Navy play 4 times, and three times they were outstanding. But the 4th time I saw them play, it was a totally different team. It was a younger team, a team that didn't really look like they played well together. And if that's the team that they have this weekend, I think Bridgend could win. I still think the Navy are the favourites, but it's going to be a really interesting one. Are you, as our resident Welshman, Toby, are you hoping that Bridgend do the Navy over tomorrow night? Or tonight, if at time of listening for the readers, it's tonight.
I mean, I'd like to see them do well. They're sort of the way Welsh Rugby League works effectively is North Wales Crusaders get all their players from Warrington, and then West Wales Raiders get all their players from the Welsh Premier League, and those West Wales Raiders players are then vital to sort of making the deeper squads for Wales. The squad which qualifies for next World Cup with Wales or plays in the next European Championship for Wales will most likely have 3 or 4 players who are playing for West Wales, sort of in that team regularly, and a lot of those players will have come through the Welsh Premier League. So this is fantastic. You could be seeing a future international playing for Bridgend, so it's very exciting. It's very exciting to see them involved, and I mean it's a hard one because we want the rep sides to do well because of the story of that, but also the story of a Welsh team doing well, a team who doesn't even play English opposition most of the year.
Yeah, it'd be really interesting.
Getting further in, getting more chances to show what they're about would be great. So I think it's a win either way. But yeah, let's hope for Bridgend.
You're hoping for Bridgend. I'm hoping for the Navy, but only because if the Army overcome Oral St James on Saturday, is it Saturday or Sunday? One of the two. We get the Navy versus the Army in the second round, and that is definitely the second round tie that I'm eyeing up. Like, it'll be payday weekend, I believe. Like, I'm thinking that's a trip. That's a trip away, whether it's Aldershot or Portsmouth. That's a trip away. That's rugby league in January. It's going to be an absolute cracker. It's going to be. It's got to be televised. I think that's going to be one of the second televised round game. I think it has to be.
Absolutely.
I'm excited about it, Robin, but you've probably got a little bit of a calmer opinion about that potential fixture.
Well, no, I think there's no better storyline than the Army versus the Navy, is there? Those 2 teams will just want to smash each other to bits. So yeah, I bet that's if that goes ahead, that'll be something. How often do they play each other? Do they
I
arrange
think
fixtures between them regularly, or?
yeah, they have an inter-services cup, and I believe they play twice a year. So it's literally the Navy
So
versus the Army, and the RAF are involved, and I think they do like a round robin, and then whoever finishes top wins. And the Navy are usually the winners of that. Like they've won it quite often, but the Army versus the Navy, it's massive in rugby union, it's massive in rugby league, it's massive in every single sport. They do not like each other on a pitch or in any sport, and I think it's
probably just in general life.
just in general life,
naturally
just
don't like each other. So it's just gonna be it'll be a crack at that.
yeah. We'll move on again though. There's one more tie that stands out for me is going to be Thornhill Trojans versus the RAF. The RAF are the final representative side in the tournament. Out of the four, they're a mixed bag. They can be really good. They can be really bad. They have one of the largest pools of people to get from because a lot of them are based in and around, and they're available a lot more often than the Army and the Navy are. And it's just a tie that it tickles my fancy a little bit. It's just got something about it. It just looks really interesting, and I think the RAF. But Thornhill are definitely the favourites, and I think I just don't know about it. It's just something about it. It's just sitting in here, and I think it'll be a cracker fixture. But knowing our luck, it'll just be a one-sided thing. But
I think this is what's so exciting about these like early rounds of the cup is you get introduced to these teams that you don't really know too much about. Things like travel and weather and who's available, they're all factors. And when we're talking about Super League clubs, it's you don't get the same
Never.
sort of like difficulties, and it just doesn't have the charm. Where this is why I love the Challenge Cup so much.
Yeah, no, you just never get it, do you? You never get that sort of thingy. If you're looking at I think usually on the day of the Challenge Cup, on the Saturday or the Sunday, on the betting apps you get the teams, and the odds are like exactly the same for all of these teams. They're like 5-4 for everyone, and it just doesn't matter. Like the away team is always not the favourite because even the betting companies are just not aware of which team is which and which is better. There's one more question I've got for you though, Toby. Is North Wales come into the tournament in the second round? You've got Milford or you've got Lee Miners Rangers. I'd rather take Milford, so you've got more chance of getting through. But I don't know if you'd agree with me on that one. Would you want a big tie, or would you want to qualify for the third round? It's
Yeah, no, in 2019, Thatto Heath knocked North Wales Crusaders out of the Challenge Cup in the Crusaders derby. And since then, I've been traumatised by the idea of playing amateur teams. I took a lunch break during a conference to be able to watch that game and just be utterly heartbroken. How could we lose to amateurs? But anyway, when I look at an amateur club, I always look at them as like what's their nearest Super League club. I don't know who Milford's nearest Super League club is. I know there's a Lee Centurions, so I think Milford are the smaller club. I want Milford, and that's all the logic I can provide around it.
No, that's fair enough. Speaking of the Crusaders, you've got some former Super League and some NRL talents, and this is another fantastic segue. This was definitely Toby's idea. Patrick Arvan, one of your players, is a former NRL player, and it brings us on nicely to a weekly fixture that is going to be the Nrl Watch.
Yeah, not to be confused with Watch NRL. This is the Nrl Watch. It's every week the three major talking points from Australia's inferior rugby league competition. No, I'm joking. I love the NRL. And it's as I say, mainly affordability reasons, but that's a debate for another day. So we've got this week to start things off. It's the three signings who could make the biggest difference to their clubs. Slightly different because I could just name like three of the Bulldogs signings because they seem to sign every free agent. But the ones who didn't sign for the Bulldogs. Here's the three signings. I've had to go for all halfbacks because I think it's well known that halfbacks are the ones who dictate the games. We're starting off with Adam Reynolds at the Brisbane Broncos, Sean Johnson at the New Zealand Warriors, and then Jackson Hastings moving back to Australia to join Brad's West Tigers.
Yeah.
I mean, as I say, I could talk about any three of them in terms of how they might change their club. Adam Reynolds brings a level of decision making and composure that the Broncos have really missed when they had Brodie Croft, Anthony Milford, sort of pulling the strings. Sean Johnson, New Zealand's he is New Zealand. He is the most New Zealander there is to New Zealand. He breathes that club, and it's good to see him back. And I think he shows every year that he's got a bit of magic still in him, but injuries are now becoming a concern for him. Things like this. But I know that there's a sad New Zealand Warrior fan to know that Sean Johnson's playing for him. And then, of course, Jackson Hastings absolutely lit up Super League for 3 or 4 seasons now. And the fact that West Tigers are turning to him to say be our answer to our consistency issues.
Yeah.
Bring your mate Ollie Gildart with you. See what you can do. I feel like I should just open the discussion floor up to you two now because I'm excited to see all 3 of them play.
Well, you know what Brad wants to talk about?
I'm excited. I'm so excited. I love Jackson Hastings. He was outstanding at Salford. He was good at Wigan. He was arguably very good at Wigan. He is so consistent now. Like, he came in and nobody knew how he would play. And now you just know he's going to take control. It's his backline. It's his team. He's going to put us into places that we would never have ever have reached with Mbai and Brooks together. Like, Jackson Hastings halfback pairing. He is the number 1 guy. Like, you throw him in there, you put Dewey probably next to him in the centre, in the halfbacks. You've got Laurie at fullback now. You've got Gildart in the centre. You've got Norfoluma. You've got Mamalo on the other wing, and then we just that other centre spot is just filling in nicely. Someone's going to come in there and they're going to fit in, and it's going to hit the spot, and it isn't going to be a Leilua. Like, it isn't. I'm sorry, Madge, but it ain't. It's just so exciting. Yes, we still have probably arguably the worst forward pack in the NRL, but if we can just play free, expansive rugby league and be consistent this year under Jackson Hastings with Oliver Gildart in there, I'll be happy. That's all. But I'm excited. I'm really excited. I think we're still quite a way away from being a contender. We're definitely not a contender, but even if we can make 8, I'll be happy. That's the goal, I think, this year. I think they have to aim for 8th. They have to finish 8th. Yeah. If they don't, I think Mike Maguire's got to go. Honestly, I said it all last year. I didn't think he was the right man for the job. But if they can finish 8th this year, give him another year with a potentially improved team and a bit more salary cap to play for. If they don't make playoffs with Hastings and Gildart and a slightly improved team, he's got, I think, time up for him. But Robin, I'm going to let you talk about Sean Johnson.
Sean Johnson, yeah. I mean, good. I think, like you said, everyone's happy to have him back at the Warriors. He's a proper New Zealander, and I'm sure at that level, when you're a big club and you in the headlines, you're on TV. It becomes a bit more like football, where there's a business decision behind the signings that you get, and I'm sure somebody at the Warriors has worked out that if we sign Sean Johnson, we'll sell way more tickets. We're going to be, the New Zealand press is going to cover us more, all the signs, all the shirts, all that sort of thing. So I'm sure that played a part in it. So it totally makes sense for him to bring him back. I think he's someone. He was really, really highly rated when he first came onto the scene, and he was obviously compared to Benji Marshall, who was just an unreal player that we spoke about at the back end of last year when he retired. He's one of those that he could be an immortal. He's that good. So I think he was sort of given like quite big shoes to fill, quite a lot of expectation,
100%.
and I don't think he isn't Benji Marshall. Like, he's still not won a premiership. But he's still a good player. He's a good NRL player. He would just wipe the floor with the entire Super League. He's reasonably consistent when he can stay fit. So I think if we hadn't have built him up at the beginning of his career to be Benji Marshall,
yeah,
we'd have not expect anything. I think he would actually be rated a lot higher than he is now. He just seems to be a bit underrated because he had that high expectation at the beginning. But I think the Warriors need something. I think they've had a couple of seasons now that haven't been great, and understandably, given the circumstances, they've sacrificed so much to keep the NRL going. When it was a lockdown in Australia, they left their New Zealand homes. They stayed over in Australia full time. Didn't see their families all year. Had to be in a bubble. So they deserve some success. I think everybody's rooting for them now because they've made that sacrifice, and hopefully this is sort of a good cultural decision to bring back somebody like Sean Johnson, who's well liked and respected, and hopefully we'll see him lift the Premiership with this team that we all just want to see do well now.
Yeah, I think they deserve some form of success, whether that be they get to an eliminator or they get to a semi-final. I don't think they're quite grand. They're nowhere near Melbourne or Sydney or Souths or whatever. They're not at that level. We know that. But they don't deserve to be languishing outside the playoffs. They're a playoff side. They're a consistent playoff side. We knew that the last two seasons was going to be hard. We knew as soon as they said you have to stay in Australia, players decided they didn't want to stay in Australia. They went home. They lost a lot of players. They had to loan lads in. Their team looked very different week in, week out. And I think now they've got Sean Johnson. Players all want to stay a bit more. I think they're back home this year, aren't they? I think they're back home in New Zealand this year.
No, I'm not sure. I think it keeps changing, doesn't it?
Have they not made up their minds yet? But they need to make up their minds soon. I think if they have another year fully in Australia, they might struggle, and we give them that extra year. But if they're back home and they're allowed to fly between, and they get that support back home, playing back in New Zealand is going to be unreal. Like getting them playing out of Auckland in front of in front of those fans. We've seen what it's like when Tonga play in New Zealand. When you've got these Warriors playing in front of that crowd, they're going to be really tough to beat. It's going to be like playing against 34, not against 17. I think. They're just they deserve a lot more.
Yeah, I love the Warriors pack, and I have the whole sort of since the COVID sort of era of sports started. I've always thought the Warriors pack has been fantastic. They've just got big, consistent players. I mean, with some star power around there as well. So I think at a minimum, that's something that we can expect is their pack to be really, really strong this year, and we'll go from there. Hopefully, Sean Johnson will have the back line playing. As for Adam Reynolds, I think the question really is he enough for the Broncos? I think that he brings an element of composure that they didn't have before, but by the same token, I think one big money signing isn't going to make up for the, quite frankly, like problems they've had in their academies in terms of building up new players. Just the problems they've got across the pitch, really. I think they've tried to answer it with one half back, and I don't think it's the answer.
No, I think this is a really bad move from Reynolds. Like, why did Souths even want to let him go? Like, why would the higher management want to get rid of such a talisman of their team? Like, he led that team. He was the man. He was the guy. Him and Cody Walker were inseparable in that halfback pairing, and you knew when one of them wasn't quite right because the other one would take control, but Souths would still do really, really well. Yes, they were a little bit inconsistent at times, but Reynolds should never have been let go by Souths. They should have offered him a huge deal. Like, to Souths, he's worth a lot of money, and I think well done, Brisbane. You've got your man, but he ain't enough. He is not enough with such a young, inconsistent team that is just playing rugby for the sake of playing rugby. They don't care about winning. They don't care about losing. They're just getting paid. A lot of them are there just to get paid, and if they went to other clubs, this is why the clubs aren't signing them. The clubs that are signing Brisbane players, they're looking at the ones that want to play. They're being spoken to. These players that are still there, they don't want to win things. I don't think they want to win things, quite frankly.
Well, I think the reason Reynolds has made the move is because he was coming up towards the end of his career, and he wanted a longer term contract than Souths were willing to give him. So that's why he's left. So clearly, the motivation for his decision to move was money, and absolutely, he's got every right to do that. You know, he's coming towards the end of his career. It's a short career in rugby league, so he's got to earn as much money as possible. So there's a player there that, yes, he's a great player. He's won titles. Like we were saying, Souths would ideally have wanted to keep him. Just obviously they weren't willing to go that far to keep him. So the Broncos have picked up a player who's again motivated by money. Not that he has been his whole career, but in this stage of his career, he's there to earn as much money as possible, and that's what everyone else at the Broncos is like. So, all right, you've got a decent player, but have you really fixed the problem of your team is just there to earn money. They don't have the same passion and commitment that we've seen from Broncos teams in years gone by.
No, you could argue that a lot of the players at Roosters are there for the money because they're on quite a lot of money, but they're at a team that are flying. Like you could take a player out, put one player in, and they're gonna perform. You look at Brisbane, you take Reynolds out, and they're probably no better. This is probably a little bit of an over exaggeration, but they're probably no better than one of the bloody academy and reserve teams that they play. Like you put the Roosters reserves against a Brisbane Broncos side without Adam Reynolds, and the Roosters reserves would win. That's the way I see it. Like another, like
it's an exaggeration, but it's not. There's maybe two other players who, in a game against an academy and reserve side,
yeah.
I think maybe you need to get rid of Katoni, Staggs, and Payne Haas. But that's it. That's it.
Yeah, you take those three. If those three players get injured at the start in the first game of the season, this Bronco side ain't winning a game all year. Maybe they beat the Bulldogs, but that's about it.
It sounds ridiculous, but there's a lot of players there as well who look good on like performance trackers. I mean, I remember having a conversation last year about Patrick Carrigan and how he's a fantasy point monster.
Yeah, he is.
I've never ever seen him do something and gone, wow, like he's the vice captain of the Brisbane Broncos. And he is, but I've never seen anything which is, like you consider people who used to hold that role, you know, someone like a Corey Parker.
Yeah,
and
they look
miles away from each other.
Yeah, plenty of distance from the Brisbane that we remember. Not even 5 years ago now. Like probably 5 years ago was probably the Brisbane team that was just on the tipping point of collapsing, and then they fell down the cliff. I mean, Herbie Farnworth getting potentially poached by a rugby union side. I think that says more about our game more than anything, more than Brisbane. But if someone would rather play rugby union than play for the Brisbane Broncos, then I think the kid needs his head testing a little bit. But because he's only young, he's got plenty of thing ahead of him. But we'll see. Hopefully Reynolds does the job. Hopefully he stays injury free. Hopefully the Broncos bounce back because they're historic. They're a massive historic team, aren't they? So we want to see the teams compete.
The more important thing, it's not even so much about the result with that club. It's about actually seeing them want to win and not giving up like 10 minutes into a game. Not seeing the first try being scored against them and having their heads down, just writing off the rest of the match.
100%.
Yeah, obviously we want to see them winning, and they should be winning with the amount of resources that club's got. But it's even deeper than that. It's worse than that. It's a real bad time at that club. They need to do something to just change the whole attitude of everyone involved.
Yeah, they really, really do. We're getting towards the end of the show now, and we always finish with something and it's going to take control. And I think this season, because of the World Cup at the end, it's going to run from this week and every round of fixtures between now and the World Cup final. So we've got between now and the end of November, there is plenty of points. There's 6 points available every week. I've not figured out what the maximum number of points is that you can win is. So if you get 100% of points, well done. Robin, that's your target this year after smashing us on our live streams last year. But we need to do our set of 6. This is going to be a weekly thing, or like I said, every time there's a round of fixtures. 6 games. If it's a Challenge Cup final or a special bunch of fixtures, we'll adjust it slightly so there's still 6 points available. But this week, 6 Challenge Cup first round ties. We've spoken about 4 of them already slightly. So we've got the televised games, we've got our picks, and then we've got one tie that stands out for us quite a lot. So we'll speak about that really quickly. The first game we've got of our set of 6, game 1, is Castleford Lane versus Thatter Heath Crusaders. So is Thatter Heath Crusaders? Thatter Heath? No.
Correct.
Yeah, it was correct. Yeah, it didn't sound right in my head when I was saying it, but yeah, correct. So seeing as this was your standout tie, Toby, we'll let you go first on this one.
I've got. Well, I mean, I think the logical choice is Thatter Heath. They've been champions of the National Conference League Premier for 3 of the past 5 years, I think. They're definitely the sort of favourites I would assume going into this game. Although I think Robin's the one who watches the betting odds, so he might know better. But I could not pick another Crusaders. There's only one Crusaders from me, so give me Castleford Lane because, or just Lock Lane, as their full title actually is. But give me Lock Lane because we could not have 2 Crusaders in the second round of the Challenge Cup.
Go on, Robin. You'd shatter Toby's dreams by telling us who's going to win this game.
Yeah, well, you make it sound like I'm some prophet, but yeah, I think you were talking earlier about the game at Bridgend, and you might be seeing some like future stars in that team. And I think both of these two clubs produce like an unbelievable amount of Super League talent. So again, this is another game where we're potentially going to be watching the stars of tomorrow play. Both teams are super successful amateur clubs. Like I said, they're sort of stalwarts of the game. And despite the fact that I'm in a cash jumper tonight, I'm going to go with the St Helen side, and I'm going to go Tyler Heath this week.
Nice. I think I'm going to have to match you there. You don't often get a team that are in 2 cup finals on the same day as Thatcher Heath were back in 2020. Both their first team and their second team, or their development squad, however they decide they want to call it, were both in a final on the same day. These guys have got a lot of players to pick from, a lot of talent, and like you said, they've previously knocked out League One sides in the 4th round, the 3rd or 4th round of this tournament. Lock Lane have got a tough like fixture ahead of them. Yes, they're both. You said they're both Premier Division sides, Toby. Yeah, both of these two.
That's the only all Premier
it's
Division.
the only all Premier Division tie, and I just think that Heath are just a little bit too strong. So I think I'm gonna go for them as well. Robin, you're up next to pick who's going to win your standout tie.
Yeah, York, Edinburgh versus York. Yeah, I think I gave it away a little bit, but yeah, I'm going for York this week. I know that they prize this as a big part of their season. They're in a stronger division. It's just hoping that they can get over the logistical challenges of the travel and play in a fit side in Edinburgh. But yeah, I'm going to go for York. I've got to go for York.
I think I'm going to go. Oh, this is a tough one. This is actually quite a tough one. I think there's a bit of a trek for York. Like you said, they produce a lot of quality players, but this Edinburgh side have already been playing. I don't know if the rugby union will have got to them. Will they really want to go and play a team like York? Will they want to welcome them? How are they going to turn up on the day? I'm a fan of expansion, and I want to see these teams play. So I think I'm gonna go for Edinburgh on this one. I think it's tough. This is one of the toughest ones, and I think Edinburgh will pull through.
Yeah, look, the reason I'm picking them is because they're the favourites. The other reason I'm picking them is because they've got a bloody good badge, and we've got a castle, we've got an English shield, but it's still a pretty cool shield with some lions on it. We've got a white rose, we've got some leaves, and we've got golden acorns. And I cannot stress enough how cool a golden acorn looks on that badge. Going for York Acorn.
Before we move on to game 3, can you rate the logo out of 10, please?
Well, I like what's going on, but by the same token, it's the acorn isn't the biggest part of the logo. If you just told me what they called, I might say the England Castles, or not the York Castles, or the York Knights, or something. So, which is that's the wrong team. Yeah. So. It's not quite telling me that they are called the Acorns or Acorn, but it's pretty. I really like what's going on. It's a nice scene, so I'd say a solid 7.5 out of 10.
7.5 out of 10.
People say, "Oh, I went with my head, I went with my heart," and Toby's gone with his eyes.
Toby's gone with his eyes. Toby has literally gone with his eyes on this one. I'll be honest. The Edinburgh Eagles crest isn't that bad either. I do like the eagle. It's very high quality. It's not just like a pair of like feet. It's not just a face. It's the whole bird. And I tell you what, they've worked well on that one.
An eagle would definitely eat an acorn as well, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would. Will the Eagles eat their nuts? That's the question. That is the question.
Every sport has an Eagles. You don't get, you know what I mean? Australia are crying out for the 18th NRL team to be the Central Coast Acorns. It's not going to happen.
No, it's not going to happen. We'll move on to my tie. We'll move on to London Chargers versus Edinburgh Rangers. I can't look past London Chargers for this one. I think the trip from Edinburgh to London, it's so long. Like we've done the trip from Bedford Tigers to Dislington, and that's further. This is a further journey for an amateur, for a community level side. It's tough. It's a long way, and I don't see a team that have finished runner up in the Southern Conference League for the first 2 seasons. Obviously, we didn't play in 2020, but for 2021 and 2019, runners up twice, only losing to the victors. They're a tough team to beat. So, and I really want to see London Scholars lose to London Chargers in round 2. So that's what I'm hoping for that.
I'm going to agree with you. I think what you said earlier as well about the 4G pitch and the Cumbrian style of play, I think it's just too much is stacked against Edinburgh for this game. So yeah, I'll back the Chargers as well.
Yeah, I'll go the opposite because we need points. I'll go with Edinburgh because Cumbria's that missing heartland that everyone forgets about in rugby league. But there is the London Chargers, London Scholars is a much more appealing second round tie, and the London Chargers are genuinely one of the clubs which I would say are at that sort of elite amateur status outside of your M62 corridor.
Yeah.
Traditionally, sort of them with West Warriors and anyway, I could keep going, but I'll pick Edinburgh purely because I'm going to try early on and take the points off you two. And when that fails, I'll start going smart when you two are getting cocky. So
I'm not. I don't. It's a long season this year. It's a long. Like I'm not going to be heartbroken after 3 rounds when I'm 8 points behind Robin after 18 games. Like I'm going with my head this year. There'll be a few games I go with my heart, like you know that. But I think I've got to go with my head a lot more, and I think I'm going to go with my head for the next one as well. No, I'm lying. I'm going for my heart. The Army, I think, are going to be a very tough match for Oral St James. I know, Robin, you said Oral have got quite a strong team, and you'll go into that again. But the Army, I love them. I love the Army. I've got that little connection with them. I've seen them play quite a lot this year. I know a few of the people. Like, come on, the Army, do it. Let's get the Army versus the Navy in round 2, please.
Yeah, we all want to see the Army versus the Navy, but I did see a highlights package of Oral St James playing. I don't know if it must have been last season, and they had a scrum half or a halfback, scrum half or a fullback.
I think it was their fullback. Yeah, it was their number 1.
The fullback. Yeah, it looked like he was coming from deep in field, and yeah, he looked like lightning. That guy, he was rapid. He was making the quickest players on the other team look like coaches. He was running rings around them all. So just on that 40-second highlights package, I'm gonna go for Oral St James, and if the odds were there, if it was a marketing play, I would definitely be backing the fullback to get a brace, I reckon.
Go on, Toby. We've split the field now, so you've got to choose our favourite.
If someone can tell me what the icon is in the bottom left and top right corner of the Oral St James badge, then I'll predict them. But it is the weakest attempt of a badge that we've got. The Army Navy game is quite attractive too. I'm gonna go with the Army.
I think it's hedgehogs. Oh no, it's seashells.
Hedgehogs.
It's seashells. It's seashells. Wow. It's seashells, and a red rose, and a cross. Yeah, and I'm not religious, so. So who are you going for?
As well, I couldn't read the numbers on the back of the kit because it was light blue with a white badge.
Are you now judging with your eyes? Is that what's going on?
I am, yeah. But I'm sticking with the unaesthetically pleasing team, but against my better judgment, maybe.
I think I'd have more respect if they were called the Oral St James Seashells. Then they'd be in my good books, but they're not. They're just. I want the Army.
All slander is not agreed upon by myself. Okay, I like your badge, Oral St James. I do quite like it. You're from the wrong side of the Pennines, but it's an okay badge. Game 5. Come on, I think this game 5 is going to be the easiest game that we pick. It is a televised game. It's Bentley versus Stanningley. I think, yeah, Bentley, not a bad team. They've just been promoted into the Yorkshire Men's. No, they've just come second in the Yorkshire Men's League, but they've been promoted into the National Conference League. They finished behind the Siddle under 23s team. in the Yorkshire Men's League, and I think that says something, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'm Team Stanley for this one purely because I just think Bentley. It's nice to see actually that how sort of open the National Conference League seems to be to promoting teams, but I think it's a technicality that they've got promoted. I don't know what. Could you imagine if Siddle's reserves would probably be in the Premier Division in 3 years' time or something? But yeah, so I'm going Stanley on this one.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with you, Robin. Are we agreeing for the first time this season after 5 games on Stanley?
We are. I think Stanley are a class club, Leeds based, and they've also had their fair share of talent produced. And like you say, I think they're the stronger side in this occasion as well. So nothing to do with the badges. I'm picking Stanley based purely on merit.
Nothing to do with it. To be fair, at least they've both got the Yorkshire Rose in there. I don't think we definitely can't knock that. So we'll go over there. The next one though it's probably, yes, it's a Division 1 side versus an NCL club Premier Division side, but it's the Featherstone Lions versus Hunslet Club Park side. It's going to be a feisty one. It's going to be a decent game, I believe. Who wants to go first on this one?
I will go first because I don't know too much about either of these two clubs, so that's fairest. I'm intrigued by the fact that Paul McShane coaches Hunslet Parkside. I don't think I've actually heard of that happening anywhere else, where a professional sports player that's currently playing in the top league is also a part-time coach for an amateur club. So despite the fact that they're not in as high a division, I'm kind of backing the fact that Paul McShane's going to teach them a thing or two. He got to the Challenge Cup final last year. He's picked up some new things from Lee Radford in the off season. So I'm thinking that maybe Hunslet have got some up their sleeve this year, and so I'm going to back them.
Nice. Go on, Toby.
My least favourite professional semi-professional club is Featherstone Rovers. So it only feels right that I give Featherstone some love this season whilst I've got the chance to, and go for the Featherstone Lions. They are the underdogs, based on the divisions of the NCL, which I don't know how true they are in showing us the quality because of how amateur clubs change. But I like it. It's not badge related either. This is more just a reason to pick different again, a reason to go with the underdogs, a reason to love the Challenge Cup and the Featherstone Lions.
Well, I don't like Fev Rovers and I don't like Fev Lions, so I'm going to go Hunslet. I don't like Featherstone, whether they're Lion or a Rover, so I think I'm going to go Hunslet on this one. So I think none of us have got the same 6, so there will definitely be someone will not have the same amount of points as the other this week. There will be there will be a leader at the end of this week, so that we'll look forward to that. So it should be a good one. I think it's taken us less time to record tonight as it did on Monday, so it won't take us long to process through. But like I said, sorry for the technical issues. Sorry that we're a day later than we said we would be. It's been such a stressful week. I don't know how many times I've apologised to these two on Monday night. I think I said the word sorry about 10 times in 5 seconds. Toby didn't talk to me for half an hour, and he said, "Go to bed. I'll talk to you tomorrow." And I felt like I was getting told off by my mum. Like, he sent me to bed. He said, "Go to bed. Like, I don't want to talk to you. I've just sat there for 2 hours, and you've told me that you need to re-record it." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm sorry." I felt so guilty, but we've done it. We're here. We'll get better. Yeah, no, that is the end. Thank you very much for joining me, Toby. Thank you very much for joining me, Robin. I'll try not to do anything like this again.
That's all right.
But no,
that's all right. I've forgiven you for now, Brad.
No, we'll
forget, but we won't. No,
we forgive. No, there'll be a blooper reel at the end of the year, and you'll see. I will just upload the whole hour and a half at the end of the year of just these two talking and responding to questions that you can't hear, and people will be like, "What is this?" It'll be a bonus episode at the end of the year. I'll keep it and make sure we've still got it. But no, we've been the Biff. It's Friday now, but you'll see us. You'll hear about us. You'll hear from us. You'll see from us in 6 days' time. I'm going to hopefully get to London this weekend. Hopefully you guys get yourself to some fixtures. I don't think there's any that close to you guys that you can potentially get to, but we'll make sure we watch at least the televised games this weekend, and we'll get back to you. We'll pick our team of the round. We'll pick our player of the round. We'll enter someone into the Hall of Fame. We'll go through some of the championship preview, which starts in 2 weeks' time now. 2 weekends' time, we have the championship back. Come on, Facts. You're 10 to 1 on Sky Bet to win the championship. So get yourself on that, guys. But we'll see you next week. We've been the Biff. It's been a pleasure to have you. See you later.
Back the Biff.
Bring back the Biff.